This is River Otter Month. That's our animal of the month. So we found some marks on the beach last session, a month ago. And you can see them at the bottom right under the ruler there. Something I had never noticed before. It was something new to me. At first we thought it was a trail, but it wasn't regular enough. There were goose tracks and, well, at least we know there was goose tracks in the area. And afterwards, we were thinking maybe we've certainly seen great blue heron down there before. And we thought maybe it might have been marks from the great blue heron beak that we see along the edge of the beach. Here's a little close look at those marks. And as I was photographing them, I looked up and I saw some geese like swimming toward me, so I didn't want to disturb them. So I backed away from the camera to let them come up onto the beach. But yeah, watch what they do. They're picking up sand and gravel. They need that to help break down the food in their gizzard. And that's what those marks on the beach were. So it was like I was trying to figure them out, and the goose came over to show me what the story was, what those marks came from. And when you take a closer look at them, you can actually see in here, you know, the pinch mark of the bill in the sand. So like I'm always saying, there's always something new that comes along, but now we've got a new sign to look for. But since we had that a little bit of confusion about the goose versus the great blue heron, we were going to go back and check tracks, but didn't have time to. So the drawing comparison this week to work on is going to be Canada goose and great blue heron. And there's certainly a big difference when you first look at them. But the thing is, on the great blue heron, this rear-facing toe doesn't always show in the track. So if you picture this track without the toe one, this would be toe one on a bird, this rear-facing toe, not showing. The goose and the heron are very similar in size and can look very similar. So a couple of the characteristics to look for. And like everything in tracking, it doesn't always work, but a lot of times, a goose track, the outer toes are going to have a curve to them, whereas the heron tracks are going to be more straight and slender. And also, we're going to see webbing sometimes on the goose track, no webbing on the heron. And if you look at the heron track, they are often not quite symmetric. Like two toes are closer together and two are farther apart. Can you see the difference in the space between the toes? So this would actually be a left track. That smaller space is, when you see it, is on the inside of the foot. So this would be a left track. So there's a little asymmetry in the heron track. The goose track actually looks pretty symmetrical, but it isn't. The inner toe on the goose track is a little shorter than the outer toe. So this would be a left track also, because this inner toe is a little shorter. So not as complicated as some of the track drawings we work on, but I thought this would be a good one to get down since we're going to be going back to the beach anyway, and we can kind of see if we can sort out goose tracks versus heron tracks.
Are those both close in size to turkey?
Turkey would be a little larger, and the toes would be much bolder. But that would be another good comparison, is to have the three together. And you know, there's always, when I do these comparisons, I think they're really good to do because you can look at the similarities and differences between tracks that are easily confused. But there's so many that fall into that category. Like this shows Canada goose and great blue heron, but we could have egret in there too, and you know, a lot of other things that are similar. So this is James helping me focus the camera here, standing in front of this torn up stump that we found. We were trying to take a guess at following a fisher trail through the leaf litter, which is really hard to do, but we had a couple of things to work for. We had found a fallen log, which fishers love to run across, and on that log there was a fisher scat. So that was a good starting point. And we followed it a little ways to some likely fisher scent posts, which would be small broken off trees about a foot high or so, a little maybe 3-inch diameter, foot high stumps, if you will, that beavers, that fish are like to scent mark. So just making some assumptions that we could possibly be on a fisher trail, we came to this torn apart tree. And this is one of the things that fishers do to trees, is rip them all apart for insects. But we really couldn't tell. There was no sign of and jump in and correct me if I forget anything here, guys. But it seems like we didn't really find anything. We didn't find any scat. We didn't find any fisher hair on the stump. It was kind of looking like it might have been done by pileated woodpecker, which was really interesting to see this much damage from a woodpecker. So we decided to put the camera on the stump to see if we could solve the problem. Well, the short version of the story is we didn't get any answers, but it's always interesting. Even though we don't get what we want, it's still interesting to see. So let's take a look at this trail camera, which was out there for about a week and a half. There's a fallen part of that stump right about down in this area that's looks about the same as this, pretty torn up. Here we've got a hairy woodpecker. Hard to imagine that was the guy who did all that damage, but he's going to take advantage of it being opened up. Coyote's checking it out. It makes me feel a little better that the coyote can't figure it out either. So it isn't just us.
They don't seem to be noticing the camera. They don't seem to be disturbed by the camera at all. That's good.
Yeah, that is good. So finally, we got the culprit here. I think the conclusion we should come to is the chickadee did this. Chickadee with a chainsaw, maybe. So that was a week. That's all I got in a week and a half. So I thought, this is kind of futile. Maybe I should move the camera to another location. And I remember that Danny had actually seen an otter down at the pond. So I went over to that edge of the pond and looked around in the sand, and sure enough, there was some nice otter tracks in the sand there. So I set the camera up to focus on a little spit of sand that is on the lower corner of the pond. It's like when you first drive into Camp Nihan, it would be on your left when you first see the pond. So the very first night, we did get an otter coming up there. Let me put that again because he just goes by pretty fast. So I tried to slow this clip down to show them the way he's moving a little better. It's this next clip is the same thing, but slow motion. You can see the front feet come off the ground and the rear feet land right in the same place as the front. That's that classic weasel 2-2 pattern that we see. And this just seemed too far away to be able to get a good shot at this little sand spit. The tracks I saw the first time were right around here. So I moved the camera over to this tree on this side. So the next thing you're going to see is a view from the tree back across this piece of sand. And I'll just let that play out because that's where the camera stayed for the rest of the month. We don't have many places at Camp Nihan where we have fresh mud. Oh, this is interesting. This is a screech owl on the side with his feet in the water on the side of the pond here. And there's those big heron feet. You can see that rear-facing toe. So it was nice to find a place where there's actually sand. Look at these guys. Whenever I see two raccoons together, I always think, here comes trouble. Everything but an otter.
Those herons are huge.
Yep. Now, I don't know a lot about birds, but does anybody know, is this like breeding plumage? I don't remember seeing this on herons at other times of the year, this fuzzy stuff here, the feathers hanging down. Does anybody know about that?
No idea.
I don't. It was standing out to me too, though, because I see herons a lot, and I was like, man, they have a really fuzzy front there that I've never noticed, but maybe that's just this time of year. But I don't know either.
I was very surprised too. Yeah.
I know egrets this time of year get long feathers in the back of their head and stuff, like just for breeding season. So maybe this is heron's fancy suit here. Well, it's going to leave a little sign for us to find. That's good. How many times have we seen those white blotches on the beach? Little coyote just flew by there. So this is just about the time of the month it started raining. We had like one or two rainy days in a row there. Look at this guy's limping. Seems to be a it's kind of amazing how many animals we've caught on the camera that are that are limping. These guys are wood ducks. Can you see the difference in the coloration? I'm going to play that again because too bad Galen isn't with us tonight. He really likes the wood ducks. There's the female up here, and that's the male coming up. So just another case where the animals outsmarted me again. The tracks were there. We saw the we saw the otter actually in that area, but did not get an otter except for that first one on these video clips. And I was saying how nice it is to have this sand to work on. Finally, the tracks, but you can see what the problem is going to be here. As it starts to rain, watch what happens to our nice sand spit. I don't think we'll be looking for tracks right there.
No, they're all gone.
And there are tracks there now. When I was there the other day, but it's going to really rain hard tonight and tomorrow. So we'll have to see if we'll be able to get out there on Sunday. I hope we can. I hope it's dried up enough that we can get out there. See the little fish swimming along here. Kind of amazing that the fish actually set the camera off. So it's about a day later and the water has receded. So that's it. two strikeouts. No answer to the who tore apart the stump, and no good otter stuff on this video clip. But it's always interesting to watch. There's always something new that's happening.
That's an active side of the pond.
It really is. And one of the things we can look for, even if the water has come up too high, is that we know there's otter in that area, so we can maybe look around a little bit. And the otter in the first clip that was running towards sort of the corner of the pond probably left the pond, and the question would be where's it going? So we will definitely go down there and see what we can sort out, see what we can figure out about otter activity down there.
I know we didn't learn a lot from the rotted tree, but I still thought it was interesting that the coyote at least paid it some attention. I wonder what piqued his interest there. I know we were around it for a while, so maybe that was it, but something got it to pay attention to that. So I was just wondering.
Yeah, and I don't know for sure, Dan, but I think it would. I just have the feeling it would much more likely pay attention to some kind of animal scent on the stump rather than a bird. So there may have been some other animals. Check it out. Well, we're going to be out in that area, so maybe we'll stop by it again and see if there's any new information that we can get. But and I'd also like to do that just to show you guys why I'm thinking it's pileated woodpecker. Based on part of the tree that had fallen over, we can take a look at all that stuff again. So let's jump into the presentation on otter here. So you can look for otter trail pretty much any time of the year. Otter follow the same routes over and over again. They're pretty predictable about where they're going to go when they're on land. They use the same crossing points. So if you find a body of land between two bodies of water, a strip of land between two bodies of water, the otters are probably going to be crossing that. So if you follow the shoreline of either one of the water bodies, you're probably going to find where they go through. And here you can see this path in the grass where otters are going back and forth between two impoundments of water. This is down at Plum Island in Newburyport. I say you can find otter trail any time of year, but obviously winter is the easiest time. And it's pretty easy to identify when they're sliding. Not too many other animals will do anything like this. Otter trail is often a combination of these bounds and slides like this. Short slides and bounds, like a kid pushing a sled. So they'll bound on flat ground and slide on flat ground. There's two otters crossing crossing a body of water that's frozen over. And same kind of thing, you can see the bounds and the slides and bounds and slides. Sometimes you just see continuous slides like this. And if it's going down a hill, it probably is an actual slide. The otters would pull their arms back against the side of their body and just slide down the hill. But on flat ground like this, what is usually happening is it's a couple of bounds and a slide and a bound and a slide, just like we saw before. But in deeper snow, it ends up being a continuous trough like this. If you picture pretty much all the weasels moving in snow, as the snow gets deep enough relative to their body size, it's almost like they're swimming in snow. So this needs a little explanation before I show it to you. This is a beaver lodge covered in snow. It's at Bradley Palmer State Park, one of the other places where I have a camera out. And the beaver deserted the lodge late last summer, and an otter moved in. So this is an otter living in a beaver lodge. The entrance that the otter is using is a broken hole into the lodge that's right up in this area. We can't exactly see it, but it's like right in here. And this just shows a little bit of sliding behavior of river otter. It's a way to cover ground, a way to travel. But it's just fun too, right? It just looks like fun. Let's do it again. Now this otter's paying a lot of attention to the camera. Definitely aware of it. Oh, I got to see that one again. That's worth seeing again. But keeps looking at the camera, sliding and then looking over. Now, this is only my interpretation, but I just get the feeling like the otter is saying, doesn't know exactly what the camera is, but it's like saying, hey, don't you want to play? Come on over. This is fun. Come on over. So here's two otters, and you can see the slide, and this one is bounding. But this gives a little better look at a kind of a trail pattern we haven't talked much about yet. One of the trail patterns we talked about with the fisher, and the otter does it too, is what's called that 2-2 bound, where you see two marks in the snow, but it's really 4 feet. It's two front feet that have come off the ground, and the two rear feet land in exactly the same place. So it looks like 2 tracks, but it's 4. Fishers do that a lot, and otters do it also, but probably more often they do this bound where you can see 4 feet. You can see the individual feet. And this is called the lope, L-O-P-E. A lot of animals do lopes. There's a lot of different versions of it. We're looking at the otter version of it, which is very compressed and boxy, very square rather than stretched out. What defines a lope is in the trail pattern, the sequence of feet is front, hind, front, hind. See if we can get a better look at some of that somewhere. Here's an otter that actually slid up the hill, played around a little bit, and then slid back down. Here's that classic otter across the pond kind of trail. This is that lope, the 4 feet really close together. It's a picture of bound, but all 4 feet don't land, the rear feet don't land exactly in the front feet holes. We saw this maybe 2 months ago. Do you remember that, Agnes? I think you noticed it. It was coming across the pond at Camp Nihan.
Yeah, I think I remember that we tried to go down to the water, and then people started to get afraid that they would fall into the water. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. That's we went
Yeah.
to the point where the otter came out. But this is really very distinctive kind of trail. You know, you can't mistake this for a fox or a coyote or anything when you see these kind of big feet all bunched together and then a short stride, short distance between one bound to the next. Kind of classic otter loping trail. Otters spend a lot of time on top of the ice in the winter. Back up. Especially late winter is a great time to see otter because there's openings in the ice where they can get in and catch fish, and they bring the fish up on top of the ice to eat. So it's a really good time to to observe them, and they're out in the daytime quite a bit. Here is that loping pattern. The feet are kind of halfway on top of each other, but see how boxy it is? It's almost like you could draw a square around it. And here you can see the otter. This is an otter rear foot here. It's typical weasel kind of morphology of the foot. 5 toes, 4 of them symmetrical. If you do a center line down the foot, there's 4 symmetrical toes. And 1 around to the side, kind of the equivalent of our thumb. Let's take a look at that. So, oh, here's some more of that otter bounce. See, it's very distinctive once you see it a few times. So this was a drawing exercise last time. So let's just take a look at the otter foot again for some of the characteristics. 5 toes, like all of the weasels, like fisher and otter both have 1 palm pad, circular palm pad associated with each toe. But they're fused together. So the effect a lot of times in the track is to see like a rippled front edge of this pad. That's a characteristic of otter. I see that ripple, and fisher too. So a couple of the big differences between a fisher track, which can look very similar, they're both weasels. Fisher has that reduced toe 1, the reduced thumb inner toe, smaller in size. Otter rear foot has a full-size toe. And you're going to see webbing. And I say down here, toe bones showing. They're not really toe bones, but it's how I describe it. Because an otter doesn't have a whole lot of fur on the bottom of its foot like a fisher does. You can see this connecting part of the foot that goes back toward the palm pad, where on the fisher, it's all filled in with fur. And the rear track is larger than the front. That's definitely different than fisher. Fisher tracks are very similar in size. So here's an otter rear foot. Here's the 5 symmetrical toes, and here's the inner toe. You can also see that an otter has scent glands on the bottom of its foot. So we can scent mark just by rubbing its feet on the ground. Here's a front foot. Noticeably smaller in the track when you see front and the rear. And the inside toe is a little reduced, a little smaller on the front foot, not on the rear. So here you can kind of see that size difference. This is an otter rear foot. Here's an otter front foot. Here's some of those tracks in sand that we saw before that I took a picture of. Another really obvious sign of otter activity is to find these latrines with all kinds of scat all over them. They'll be near a pond. They'll usually be in a raised area. If there's a hill, a little hill around, they'll be on top of the hill. There'll be various aged scats. And you want to look for them, if you're just starting from scratch, in places where there's little peninsulas that stick out into the water. This would be a great place for an otter scent area, also called some people call it a haul out or a roll area. This is an otter den in one of those peninsulas, those killed areas near the pond. So this would go in and the otter den would be under the ground, but also probably have some exits above ground too. This exit would normally be underwater. This pond was drained by the Army Corps of Engineers, so it exposed this open entrance to an otter den. Here's on top of that that same mound and you can see the scat here. Besides the scat, otter urine tends to kill the vegetation. So if you see browned out areas on the ground, or if you see places where the pine needles are scuffed up into little piles, otters will do that and leave scat on top of the piles. So disturbances to the ground and patches of dead vegetation, spots with browned out vegetation, all indicate an otter latrine. Here's that scat, pretty fresh. You can see the little silver fish scales in it. That's the most common thing you're going to see in otter scat is fish scales. And here's some otter scat with fish scales on this side. But on this side is one of their other favorite foods, which is crayfish. Now, crayfish aren't red-orange like this, but after they go through the otter's digestive system, the shells come out this color. This is the best otter scat video I've ever seen. This was sent in by one of our fellow trackers, Celine. She did a video of this scat that she found in the process of her breaking it up, and it's really shows the scat really well. It's making all kinds of crunching sounds while she breaks it up. Can you see the little fish bones too? If there was a category at the Emmys for best scat video, I think Celine would definitely win. So here's that beaver lodge that we were looking at before at Bradley Palmer that the otter was on, sliding down, and it was sliding right in this area. I had the camera over here. And so the entrance that we still can't see is right around in this area, right around the corner. There's a hole broken through the lodge that the otter probably did, that where it went in and out of the beaver lodge. And right in this area, I'm going to show you a clip. I think it's the next one, of right over in this area. Here we have an otter latrine, some fresh scat, some older scat, fish scales. So this is a scenting area. It's used to signal other otters that this lodge is being used. And we actually got some video of the otter scent marking, urinating and rubbing the feet to scent mark. And that's that same spot that I showed you in the picture before. It's rolling. She is rolling, which can be a scent marking activity also, but otters do that in places where there's no scat too. And it's believed they do it to spread the waterproofing oils over their furs, spread the oil around a little more evenly on their fur. Definitely wants to make it known, this is my lodge. So this is an activity I've never seen before. This is brand new to me. This is a female otter, and the only reason I can tell is from the urination. But look what she's doing. She's collecting like nest material to bring into the lodge. This is the time of year when otters mate and give birth. It's delayed implantation so that the mating from last year would produce the pups from this year, and the mating season is right after the pups are born. So she very well could be preparing this lodge for babies.
How big do these lodges get?
The lodge itself?
Yeah.
Well, this particular one, I would say from the water level is about 4 feet high, maybe, not real high. I'd say 4 feet from the water level. And it's a beaver lodge. So it's not an otter lodge, but the beaver
Ah, right.
has
Yeah.
taken it over. I didn't explain that very well, I don't think, but
No, I just didn't realize that it's the same. This is still the same lodge.
yes, that is. Yep, it's the same
Okay.
place. I wish we could see inside there. So the next day, or actually the day after I checked the camera, I got up closer and I took some pictures of these broken off, chewed off sticks, which is a kind of sign I've never thought about before, never noticed before. But I'm going to be looking for it around otter activity from now on, where the otter is partially bitten and then broken off these sticks to use for nest material. Here's a little closer look at it. So then, right in the same spot, everybody's got to take a turn. So I don't imagine the otter was very happy about that. And unfortunately, we had to take the camera down right after that. So I don't know the rest of the saga. I'm going to try to put it back out there again and see if the otter is still there, if they raised the pups, or if maybe she decided to relocate based on the fact that she had the visit from the coyotes.
Mhm. It's very rude just to go to other people's restrooms, breaking into their homes, and
I know, really, especially if it's like,
very
you
impolite.
come right up on your front porch and do that. That's terrible. Well, I hope it worked out. I hope the otter was, but I imagine that the otter knows best what to do. Maybe that's a reason to get a better place. Just the last picture I want to show you is not one of my images, but one of my favorite nonprofits here sent this picture of the baby otters. That's so cool. So they would be born this time of year. These guys must have been from a previous year. They're so big, but we'll try to get that Bradley Palmer camera back on the lodge again and see if we can see some of these little guys. That would be really cool.
How old was that video at that launch? Was that very recent?
It was only a month ago tops.
Oh.
It was when the last snow melted was when that was there. So, but it has been a gap. There's been about a 3-week gap where we haven't had the camera there. I think there's maybe one other thing I just want to go over, and that's to explain this phone book thing a little bit. So I talked to Richard, and he doesn't want to make copies of the book anymore. He's out of the book business, I guess. But as you know, this is a pretty unique publication, and it might be worth it to you to do a little bit of extra work to get a copy of it. So the deal is, you can buy the book at $20 each. There's 2 volumes. One volume is the skulls and mandibles. The other one is the arm and leg bones. So each one will be $20. He's going to charge for shipping also. And if you want to print it, he's going to give you a letter that says, like, if you go to Staples or whatever place you go to do printing, that you have permission from the author to have it printed. I have no idea how much it would cost to print. Might be prohibitive, but just wanted to pass this information on to you guys. So there's contact information for Richard. And also, if you want to ask him any bone questions, he loves to talk about bones.
Thanks.